Comedians of Reddit, what is the worst joke you've ever told and how did your audience react to it? I saw a German guy once telling a joke on a British comedy night in his very thick German accent. Sorry for my really bad accent, but English is not my first language. You would feel the same if my grandpa would have fought a bit harder. I saw a guy bomb once. Came on stage wearing a kilt, which was fine. First joke was about the front row being able to see up his kilt, which was also fine. He followed that by resting his right foot up on one of the stage speakers and exposing himself to a table where a young couple were sitting with her parents. About 30 seconds later the 4 people at the table were standing. The young lady was crying and the guy was being escorted off stage. Thank you Yuck Yucks Calgary, Alberta. I have never laughed so hard at a comedy show. So that I don't have to answer the question about why she was crying 50 more times. Either she was overly sensitive about seeing a dong, lots of religious folks in Alberta, or she was simply upset that this guy ruined her night out with her husband and her parents. There was also food on the table which makes the gag pretty gross. Christ almighty, I was at that show. When news hit that a plane crashed with an ex-flyer in it, Hucky, I said, technically they're all ex-flyers. It got uneasy shock laughs. I was doing an open mic thing and one guy started giving me crap, which is terrifying as frick when it's your first time, so I told him that if I were his parents I wouldn't have taken the time to raise him properly either, to which he responded that they had died in a car accident. I finished with pointing out that it isn't frequently that someone comes up with a solid defense for drunk driving and thanked him. The crowd was pretty thin but it was generally well received. I was watching To Catch a Predator and there was one guy who brought his kid with him. The whole time I was just thinking, what a waste. He could have stayed at home to do that, and he wouldn't have gotten arrested. Just goes to show that eating out is really expensive. It was a predominantly white collar crowd and they appreciated it more than any of my less risque jokes. Gonna post this to our frugal. I was in the middle of a set and forgot my next line. I paused for a second and then suddenly remembered. I then said, oh, it just came to me, like my dad when I was young. Everyone grown laughed, but one girl in the front laughed her butt off, and her boyfriend tried to shush her. Everyone else was silent, which made her laugh more, which set everyone else off. Things went better than expected. She has daddy issues. Freaking black women is a lot of fun. They really do a good job. The part that bothered me though was she didn't know how to respond to dirty talk. I was like, yeah baby, who's your daddy? And she turned around and said I never met him, but my mom thinks his name was James. I told that in front of about 30 black people and 10 white people. The black people laughed. The white people got scared. If you got the black people approval on a joke about black people, you're in, dude. Got heckled. I made fun of the heckler for their bad grammar. Heckler called me a grammar Nazi. I called heckler a grammar Jew. Got that strange mixture of laughs, gasps, stares. Didn't matter. Got laugh. What happens if you put human DNA inside a goat? You get banned from the petting zoo. I've lost friends with this piece of crap. I opened with OJ. Simpson is the world champion of frick, marry, kill. I got quite a few gasps on that one. I'm dying right now. Back when I did more one-liner stuff, my most offensive joke was usually the one that got the most laughs. I think I'd make a great kindergarten teacher because I'm good at hiding my erections. Ha 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 ha, holy crap. Only joke on here that actually made me laugh out loud. Keep it up, brother. When the Connie thing was big, I had a joke that went, I heard they have a Ugandan special at Sonic now. Yeah, it comes with a Coney and 30,000 tots. Lots of shock laughs were had. That's wonderful. What's the difference between Michael J. Fox and Michael Gross? Michael Gross was in Tremors. No one laughs, they just look at me with scorn. It's all mine though, so I keep on telling it. I posted this joke on Reddit after the Fukushima nuclear plant blew up in Japan. Too soon apparently. Finally some good news out of Japan. Rescue teams are reporting that tsunami survivors are much easier to find now that they've started glowing in the dark. Around that tsunami time, my Japanese girlfriend broke up with me, but it's okay I guess. There's plenty more in the sea. This one requires a little bit of explanation. My friend had been giving stand-up a go for about 2 years when the following happened. After an unbelievably drunken party, 2 of his close friends hooked up. They were falling down drunk and weren't being particularly safe or careful, which is probably what was going through the young lady's head when she slurred, mid-coitus, "If I get pregnant, I'm keeping the baby." The gent popped out of her like a projectile, put on his pants and stumbled not just out of the bedroom but the entire apartment complex and chose to sleep it off in the back of his truck. In Los Angeles non-locals, this is a bad idea. Anyway, 2 weeks later my buddy, having long since heard both sides of the story, is going on stage for an open mic night. The way it worked was the more audience members you brought, the longer you got to stay up there, so he invited pretty much everyone he knew and who should show up but the unhappy couple, each with new dates. Because the guy and his date showed up late, there was limited seating, so, of course, he got placed directly across from the girl who had last seen him evacuating her tea like it was a theater fire. He was pretty much the mayor of Awkward City. And then my friend hit the stage and opened with a 10-minute bit about his 2 friends who hooked up after a really drunken party. I was sent to a court-ordered DUI victims panel. I always try to make the best of every situation and decided to try and pick up girls. Hey baby, word on the street that you like to get drunk and make bad decisions. Alternatively, I tried this at a MADD event. I like those women because you know they don't have kids. The audience reacted poorly. I wasn't a fan until that last line. Worst. How about unfunny? My friend worked college circuit clubs for a few years. I heard him deliver this particular gem to cricket's silence. There's a new book out, a how-to book for pimps called How's to Keep You Bee in Line. Of course in England its title is How's to Keep You Bee in the Queue. Thinking he could rescue it, he added, "Governor." In his defense, his audience probably didn't even know Q was a word. I had a joke. I really don't understand the concept of child pee. I've never seen any, but the acting must be terrible. Laughs and lots of shocked faces. I got my start doing stand-up at open mic nights at my high school, which was a tiny private Catholic institution in a sleepy New England town. My opening joke for one set was, Jesus wasn't some handsome white man with beautiful hair. He was a Jew living in the Middle East. If you saw him at an airport, you would be afraid. The crowd, which was mainly comprised of parents and teachers, did not exactly react well, but my friends, who were sitting in the back, starting laughing and cheering, so it wasn't all bad. Still worth it. That's not a joke, that's just truth. I don't hate teen pregnancy, I don't. In fact, I encourage it. It's a constant reminder that my life could have turned out a lot worse. First and last time I told that joke. I was at a comedy show and this dirty, raunchy guy was telling these jokes that I thought were freaking hilarious, but no one else seemed to think they were funny or appropriate. One of the jokes was talking about freaking positions and he says, "You know what my favorite position is? Human style. That's when I'll lay my dog on his back and frick him." Oh man, I couldn't stop laughing. An old Jewish guy in the USA won the lotto jackpot of $120 million. While being interviewed by the local news, he was asked what he was going to do with the money. "First thing I'm gonna do is give half the money to the Nazi party in Germany." Somewhat surprised by this response, the news guy asked, "Why the heck would you do that after all the things they put you and your family through during the Holocaust?" "Well, come on, fair's fair," he says as he rolls up his sleeve. "They did give me the numbers. Basically everyone looked at me like I was a horrible person and my one Jewish friend got really pissed off." I was a bit confused about when this whole story was supposed to occur because the Nazi party hasn't existed since the Holocaust for obvious reasons. But otherwise I'll just stew about this joke because I happen to be German. I spent hours generating a fake prank call with Stephen Hawking and played it to a dumbfounded audience. Simulated voice generator purportedly Stephen Hawking. Hello. Simulated voice generator. Hello. Simulated voice generator purportedly Stephen Hawking. Who is this? Simulated voice generator. It's you from the future. We finally did it. We completed the ramp to the time machine. Random, but poignant. Stephen Hawking holds a firm disbelief in time travel and actively refutes claims to potential backward time travel. I am 1/16th Native American. My great-great-grandmother was violated by a pilgrim. It's tragic, yes, but it's better than saying my great-great-grandfather violated an Indian. I don't tell this joke anymore and it always received mixed reviews. A lot of my comedian friends liked it but women in the audience usually hated it. To the people who are shocked, you could say, I'm sorry, I should have said Native American. How can you tell when your girlfriend is too young? You have to make aeroplane noises to get your dong in her mouth. Jimmy Carr. It's usually followed by guilty snickers. My joke was my mom babies me still, to this day. Like for example, she still tries to kill me with a wire hanger. Crickets. I live in South Florida so abortion jokes don't go over so well. Needless to say it was very discouraging. Change. She still tries to. Just the other day, she tried. Changing the number of instances makes it better, and the whole joke has a bit more flow. It's overused, but it still works, somehow. I used to do comedy reviews back in my amateur theater days. One year we did one particular skit that involved King Arthur and crew at the round table, but in a modern setting. The joke was corny to begin with. Arthur brandishes the Daily Telegraph and says, "Have you read the news? The peasants are revolting." I'll leave you to fill in the punchline. It's pretty obvious. So anyway, the 14th of March, 1996 we do our evening performance. Arthur brandishes that day's copy of the Telegraph and delivers his line. A gasp from the audience and then silence. You could hear a pin drop. We're all wondering why nobody is laughing. It was the day after the Dunblane massacre. On the front page of every newspaper in Britain is a picture of all the kids who died. He just called them all revolting. Awkward. Now I know why Married with Children used the same newspaper in every episode. Not my joke, but I heard it at a comedy show. It was told by a youngish black guy. When I was young, my mom got us a dog. All this dog would do was eat, crap, sleep, and then take off for 4 days. Then he'd come back, eat, crap, sleep, and take off for 4 days. We named him Daddy. The crowd loved it. I once told a crowd I was surprised people keep asking if zebras are white with black stripes, or black with white stripes. It was obvious they were white because you never hear about a bunch of cops beating up a zebra for no reason. Everyone shut up and just stared at me. Yeah, but every time I've seen a zebra outside of Africa it was behind bars. Took fiancé out for dinner, got frog legs. First time she's had them. As she took her first bite I started singing Rainbow Connection in Kermit's voice. 20 years later she still gets pee. Hello. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I did this in front of my high school cafeteria by the way. Please, stop clapping. No one was or had been clapping by this point. Sorry if that didn't make much sense. This act is completely scripted. Seriously, stop clapping. It's making me really angry. You should have started telling Minecraft jokes. Then your reputation would be permanently sealed. I was auditioning for my college's improv team. I don't know if it was nerves or my own demented sense of humor that possessed me to start a scene off with a blank stare towards my Cinnamon and say, my girlfriend didn't see the humor in me making her scrambled eggs in an attempt to cheer her up the morning after an abortion. He, along with every other male there, cracked up while I received death glares from the women in the theater department. Needless to say, I got on the team, and from that day forward my nickname on the improv team was Eggs. The joke is whatever, but that's a terrible way to start off a scene. When I was 9 my best friend drowned. I was never the same, because I found out I could get away with murder. This sounds like a Jimmy Carr joke. I did stand up once. I was pretty confident because I did some good voices. The one that got a terrible reaction was my impression of Kermit the Frog reporting from Manhattan as 9/11 happened. He used to be a reporter on Sesame Street, so I would say Kermit the Frog here and, oh my goodness, a plane, and then I'd yell like him. I hope you ran around and flailed your arms as well. Shakespeare is credited with introducing over 20,000 words and phrases to the English language. And you thought that crap was hard to follow in high school. Crickets. Under my breath, but apparently also into the mic. Not a winner. Uproarious laughter. Dongs. My favorite reaction to that is don't worry, I'm going to fix that joke. I'm going to take all the words out and replace them with new ones. I remember hearing this one around the time Steve Jobs died. What's the difference between cancer and a black guy? Cancer can get jobs. It always resulted in either hysterical laughter or a facepalm. This one got me some deadpan reactions. So I recently quit masturbating. Anybody do that? Yeah, the thing about that is you get really frisky after a day or two. So I go out to a bar looking to pick up some ladies. And the thing about going to a bar when you stopped masturbating is, your standards get way lower. It's kind of like shopping while you're hungry. You'll eat anything. In both instances, you wake up the next day going, oh god, what have I done? I didn't even check the fat content. Okay, here's another iffy one. I went out on a date with a girl recently. We were talking about our lives, and I mentioned that I still live with my parents. And she's like, don't you think it's weird that you're 27 and you still live with your parents? And I'm like, don't you think it's weird that you're 16 and you live on the street? I really liked the first one. Some guy at my high school did this joke that went, while applying to colleges, I was looking into UW and WSU, but then I saw Virginia Tech had a bunch of spots open up, so I thought I'd apply. It was probably a week after the shootings. Everyone just shook their head in shame. I was doing improv with a public high school group in front of a public audience. We were playing a game of freeze tag, in which two people enact a scene. At any time during the scene, another actor can yell freeze and tap someone out of the scene, taking their physical position, then starting a new scene. One scene involves some big fish story, and a person has their arms outstretched. Big arms, as Eddie Izzard once said. A thought pops into my head. Another scene. I see the same big arms. I tell myself if I see it again, I'm going for it. Third time, I yell freeze. Take the actor's place with the big arms and slowly cross my legs at the ankles. The only words out of my mouth to start the scene. Does anyone have a crowbar? These nails are starting to hurt. The audience reacts with a stifled bit of laughter and a great deal more tension, wondering whether or not it's okay to laugh. And scene. Lights fade to black, and I get hit upside the head by one of the other guys on stage. It was the last game of the night, and I certainly ended it on some kind of high note. I got in trouble during Improv once because I breastfed a child, an imaginary child nonetheless. I've been trying to improve my self-confidence lately, so I finally went and beat up the kid who used to bully me in middle school. I thought he'd be hard to recognize after all these years, but he actually looked the same as he did when he died back in 7th grade. That got me a lot of laughs surprisingly, but there were definitely a bunch of people in the crowd who looked very uncomfortable. My first detention was for telling a teacher to put his hands on his head, say I, spell map, and say Ness, which he did 3 times over and over while the 7th graders busted guts. I became a legend for a week and then went back to getting beat up. My brother thinks I'm a terrible stand-up comedian, maybe the worst. Sometimes it hurts whenever close family members give you that level of criticism, and it did, a little. Unfortunately, my brother is in a wheelchair, so I think his knowledge of stand-up comedy is questionable at best. I had a good crowd, mostly 18-25-year-olds who all loved it. The rest of them were just as bad. I once asked the crowd if they were pro-guns and the majority belted out in approval. I asked a man in the front row why he was pro-guns and he gave me the basic personal protection liberty Second Amendment hoopla. I very seriously told the crowd, I'm pro-guns because I enjoy living in a world with only 4 Nirvana albums. My friend was the only one who laughed. I've never offended more people in any moment in my entire life. I laughed. Abortion should be legal. If abortion was always legal, Jesus could have died for our sins a lot sooner. I forgot how I tied this in, but I also added in somewhere. Jesus saves. Moses invests. My friend insists on telling the same variation of this joke over and over again, using every word he can think of. What's your name, Elise? Well, did you know that your parents had trouble deciding what to name you? They were thinking about naming you Lise, but when someone asked them about it, they were unsure of themselves, so they answered Lise. He has done this every time he meets a girl named Elise or Alicia, so predictably, He has never had a girlfriend with either of those names. He also weirded out my dad, who is also notorious for his groan-inducing jokes, by sidling up to him at an event and telling him a variation on the same joke using the word umbrella. I think it was raining that day. I was tempted to reply to about 30 of the comments overhead saying it was the least funny joke I'd ever heard, but I'm glad I waited. Why does it take girls so long to pee the morning after? Every try to open a grilled cheese sandwich, my talking privileges were taken away for the weekend. Gross. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.